Bitcoin is a solution in search of a problem. This is a critique that I've heard a couple times about Bitcoin by people who really don't understand the protocol. So today I'm going to be answering the question, does Bitcoin actually solve any problems? I'm your host, Satoshi Guapamoto, and this is Gen Z BTC. And I'm going to be going over three major problems that Bitcoin solves. Of course, I dropped my chalk. And one of the problems is money, the other energy, and then the last one is going to be war. This is a bullet, by the way. So I'm the best animator on YouTube. I'm the best artist on YouTube. And today we're going to start with the problem of money. How does Bitcoin solve the money problem? Well, money has a few distinct characteristics, right? Money is highly divisible. Money is fungible. Money is saleable. Money is transportable. And most importantly, money stores value. You cannot have something that rots or decays very quickly as money, because you wouldn't ever be able to hold on to it as a form of savings, right? If you were to try to use strawberries as money, then if someone were to exchange their hard asset or their hard good, like a chair or a table or a tool, then they would have to spend their strawberries immediately before they rotted, right? Strawberries are not a good store of value because they decay very quickly over time. That's why gold was a superior store of value compared to something like strawberries. Not only does gold not rust and it holds its value over time, it does not decay, it's not destroyed by elements very easily, but also it can be hard to produce, right? Gold is hard to produce. Bitcoin is also extremely hard to produce. It's actually harder to produce than gold. When money is easy to create, society begins to break. And that's what we see in the current administration. This is what we see in the current global regime, right? Money can be printed on pieces of paper, right? And the money isn't worth the paper that it's printed on. Money currently is called fiat currency, meaning by decree of the government, fiat. And when you just say something's money, and then you have the central control over it, you're able to print as much as you can, that is called dilution, right? You're diluting everybody else's holdings. That's the reason why inflation keeps getting higher and higher, and why people keep getting poorer and poorer, why the cost of living keeps going up, and the price of everything keeps going up and up. It's not that the goods are necessarily getting better, but that the paper is getting worse. The dollars are getting worse. The currency is getting worse. How does Bitcoin fix the money problem? Not only does it have the best properties of money, but it also cannot be debased, right? That's one of the main selling points of Bitcoin. There's 21 million Bitcoins. There cannot be any more, right? So Bitcoin is able to store its economic energy, that economic value, into the future, right? Not only can you send Bitcoin to anyone at any time, but also you can send any amount at any time, right? No matter how big or how small. And that amount is going to store its value over time. Dollars do not store value. As much as people would like to think that cold hard cash is the best thing to hold on to during times of crisis or even when times are good, holding on to cash makes you poor. Holding on to cash makes you poor. Okay? If you don't believe me, here's another easy example. If a burger was $1 in 1980, right? A McDonald's hamburger, dollar, right? If you put $1 under your mattress and you kept it there, and you said, oh, I'm going to go buy a Big Mac. I'm going to buy a Big Mac in 40 years. Then you wake up in 2024. Here we are today, right? You take your dollar from the 80s and you bring it into the future and you ask for a Big Mac, right? They're not going to give you a Big Mac for $1. That's not how that works. Okay. The price of everything has gone up. You need more pieces of paper. You need more dollars to buy the same thing. All right. In fact, the burger's probably gotten worse. It was probably a lot better back in 1980. All right. Compared to today, probably a lot better back then. A lot less filler meat, a lot less random garbage, a lot less chemicals, a lot less coloring agents, all right? And a lot more actual meat, a lot more actual protein, actual nutrients. So your product has gotten worse and it's gotten more expensive, right? You have to think, let's say you sell wine, right? And the price of everything keeps going up because the government's printing money. You have three options, really. You can continue to sell your wine at the same price. Let's say it's $10. And that means that you're actually losing value because the cost of everything else is going up and you're keeping your prices the same. You're not able to actually keep up with your overhead. You can't keep up with the pay that you have to give to your workers. You can't keep up with the taxes on your building. You can't keep up with the rent. You can't keep up with anything, right? So if you keep it $10, you're going out of business. You can water down your wine and make your product worse and still sell it for $10 because really you're not selling the same amount of wine. You're selling a mixture of wine and water. You're making a worse product so that you can sell it at the same price, right? So rising prices make your price work, make your product worse. And then the final thing you could do is you could raise the price of your wine to $20 and keep up with the rate of inflation, right? Because the only way your business can keep going and keep growing is that you have to keep up with inflation. Otherwise, you go out of business. Like in the 99-cent store, they couldn't raise their prices because they're the 99-cent store. All right. And because they capped themselves in that way, they went out of business because you can no longer sell things for $1. Simple as that. Bitcoin cannot be debased. Bitcoin stores its value because as long as dollars keep getting printed, you're going to need more and more dollars to buy this finite thing. It has an inelastic supply while the demand keeps going up because the demand for dollars is going down as they're continually printed and debased. Bitcoin solves the money problem. Energy. People often complain, oh, well, Bitcoin uses too much energy. It's wasting energy. When really they don't even know how Bitcoin mining works or what the repercussions of using Bitcoin miners actually is, right? So these are the same people who will talk about how, oh yeah, we need more solar energy, we need more clean energy. Look at the Tesla. That Tesla runs on electricity. It's not polluting the earth as much as a diesel truck, as a gas guzzler. But all of a sudden, when Bitcoin miners are using energy, which by the way, they only use electricity, right? They do not let off any CO2 or anything. They're just computers, right? So they just emit heat, right? They only emit heat. That's a problem. Oh, it's wasting too much energy. Oh, it's destroying the earth. Oh, it's boiling the ocean. But what's actually happening is Bitcoin miners innovate the energy sector, right? Because what are Bitcoin miners trying to do? They're trying to solve a hash. In order to solve the hash, to find the hash, you need a lot of energy that you can use cheaply. That's the key ingredient, cheap energy. Bitcoin incentivizes cheap renewable energy because the person who can mine Bitcoin for the cheapest is able to make the largest profit. Right? If you're using extremely expensive oil to run your mining machines somehow, then you're wasting money because the person who's using solar, who's using wind, who's using hydro, who's using nuclear power, they're going to find a way to mine the Bitcoin block and get paid in Bitcoin while using a much cheaper energy source than you. Okay? You have to get extremely lucky and mine multiple blocks in a row in order for your oil operation to be successful. Bitcoin miners are using flared gas, all right? That's reducing the amount of methane and CO2 being released into the atmosphere. They're trying to look for stranded energy, for wasted energy, okay? When you're flaring off gas, when you're just burning off the excess, you can use that energy. That's just escaped energy. You're just wasting that chemical. You're wasting that CO2. You're wasting that methane. You could use that as a way of mining Bitcoin. Bitcoin tries to use all energy possible. It's not wasting any energy. In fact, it's trying to find more energy to use in more efficient ways so that none of it goes to waste. Not only that, but also it incentivizes clean energy, right? So in places where maybe it wouldn't have been feasible, it wouldn't have been economically feasible to try building a solar farm or a hydro farm or like a dam or a nuclear power plant or something like that, Bitcoin makes it financially viable because the reward that you will get in the Bitcoin network will actually pay for the expenses, right? If you're just making a dam or a hydro plant somewhere where the energy might not be needed, or if it's just economically feasible, you don't have the money to do so, the reward of Bitcoin mining actually makes it so that you get your return on your investment. You're actually able to pay off the money that you put into the facility, right, that you're building. So not only is it searching for renewable energy at all times, for cheap energy at all times, but it's actually making cheap and renewable energy more practical. Okay, this is how we get to a sustainably green energy environment. All right, not by putting a tax on people who reduce or produce too much carbon. Right, it's about incentives, especially when you do a carbon tax and it's like, oh well, these multi-trillion-dollar companies, they're going to pay $1 million fine if they do too much CO2 into the atmosphere. Okay, so they're going to pay pennies. Nice little buddy. Nice job. You're going to make $1 trillion company pay pennies because they did too much CO2 pollution into the atmosphere. Really good job. That's a really good incentive. I'm sure they're going to stop. I mean, we've been doing it since like 2016 when we've been really pushing this ESG nonsense. Really, it's really working really well, guys. Good job. Really good job. So Bitcoin is the thing that actually leads us to a renewable energy future, not any other garbage that we've been trying since then. And then finally, Bitcoin disincentivizes war. Now, I'm not crazy enough to say that Bitcoin ends all wars immediately because people will always find a reason to fight over stuff because they're just idiots. But Bitcoin disincentivizes the war machine. right? And the way that it does this is it stops governments from being able to fund wars by printing money. So if you go back in the day, if you wanted to fund a war operation and you were the government, you had to try to get your citizens on board because you would have to force them into austerity, which is living within their means, and you'd have to tax them a lot. And then you'd also have to turn a lot of their jobs into weapons manufacturing plants, right? And all these things involve citizen approval, right? If the citizens are going to go along with that, you're not going to have the funding from the war, which means you can't go fight the war, which means you're going to lose if you do try to go without the funding, and it's just going to be bad for you, right? Whereas on a Bitcoin standard, right, you're not able to just print money in order to fund the war. Because what we have today is people saying, oh, you know what, we're just going to go fund another forever war, right? There's some people fighting over there. Well, guess what? We don't want to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to send a $35 billion AIDS package over to Ukraine. We're going to send a $50 billion aid package over to Israel. We're going to send a $50 billion aid package over to Germany or whoever's fighting a war where we don't exactly want to go. And even if we do want to go, right, we're going to send a couple troops over there. And who's going to pay for all those F-1 fighter jets or F-35 fighter jets and all those tanks and all those bombers, you know, those AC-130s, you know what I mean? Who's going to pay for all that? Well, I mean, let's just print the money up, right? So taxpayers actually end up paying for the war because when you print money, all individuals in your society, all taxpayers foot the bill through inflation. That's what I talked about with the money problem, with debasement, right? So all these things are kind of tied together, but essentially with the war effort, you can actually just print your way into a forever war. That's why the United States is always at war all the time. How do we pay for that? Right? We don't have to raise your taxes. We will do it discreetly by just printing more money and making your dollars worth less. That's why inflation is called a hidden tax, right? It's a hidden tax on your wealth, and it's a way of stealing your time and stealing your value away from you, right? When you print dollars, that means that they're worth less, which means when you go to work, you're putting in hours that are worth less, right? Your hours of life are worth less when you're getting paid in dollars that are being debased and created by someone else for nothing. Really let that sink in, okay? There was a time where you had to work 400 minimum wage hours in order to afford a new car, right? But now you have to work 10 times that amount of minimum wage hours in order to afford a new car. There was a time when in order to afford a new house, you had to work about 15,000 minimum wage hours, right? But now you have to work about 60,000 minimum wage hours. You're working 4 times harder for a house that's arguably worse. It's not built with bricks, the foundation's not good, and the plumbing's faulty. Right? So it's absolutely insane. But these are just 3 of the problems that Bitcoin seeks to fix. So when people tell you that Bitcoin is a solution in search of a problem, they really haven't figured out what the problems are, right? They might think they know what some of the problems are, but what they do is they just scapegoat other people that they can see, right? They scapegoat immigrants, they scapegoat Democrats, they scapegoat Republicans, they scapegoat Jews, they scapegoat whoever they can. They're the reason why everything's so bad. They're the reason why inflation's so high. They're the reason why the environment's getting destroyed with pollution and CO2. They're the reason we're going to all these wars. It's somebody else. It's them. It's them. It's them. But really, it's actually your own government, unfortunately. And if you don't actually believe that, then there's only one word for you, and that's cope. You need to cope. Well, what does cope mean? I'll put up a little Urban Dictionary definition right here. But basically, you need to cope. You need to cry harder. You need to go do something else. You know what I mean? You could educate yourself, right? But let's be real. Most people aren't going to do that. They're just going to cope and they're just going to cry. And that's why people with solutions are actually going to fix the world and get rich in the process. And all the crybaby losers are just going to cope all day and do nothing. And then they won't even thank you for saving them, which is crazy. They're just extremely arrogant and useless. But for the people who are doers, right? It was the people who have a vision, who are people who actually get stuff done. All right, the Satoshi Guapamoto army, you feel me? The Gen Z BTCers, we're going to actually work on fixing the world. We're going to be the generation that works on ending some of the biggest problems in all of human history. And we're going to do it through Bitcoin. We're going to do it with our tenacity, and we're going to do it with our creativity and our vision, right? So stay the course, stay focused. Don't get thrown off track by people who don't know what they're talking about, okay? And if they think they know so much, have them explain it, and make sure that you're, equipped with knowledge, so that way you can show them exactly where they're going wrong. This has been Gen Z BTC. If you like this video, make sure you like it, comment, and subscribe. Share it with someone else who might also enjoy it. And be sure to follow me on Twitter as well. I'll be throwing up a couple memes on there, and we got a lot of good content coming, so stay tuned. This has been Gen Z BTC. Satoshi Guapamoto out of here and stack sats or die trying.